what parents want is for their children to take everything that they give them. And parents really want the kids to take the education that they offered, take the love, take the Porsche, take the BMW, take the gifts, and take them freely and accept them generously. And when the entanglement happens, the imbalance happens when the children, for whatever reason, can't take from the parents because they judge what the parents are giving them as not good enough, or they judge it as they should be giving more, or they judge it that the love that they're receiving isn't the kind of love that they want. So they don't take completely. And so during the ceremony, what I do is I ask the groom to turn around, and today he turned around and looked at his dad. And the backstory is that when his father and his mother have been divorced and they're estranged, and to the point that the father never gets invited to any of the family functions because the mother gets invited. So they had to set up the wedding that today they would get married and invite the dad, and on Friday they're going to have the party where the mom can be. So it was really beautiful to be able to get the groom to turn around and face his dad. And his dad is quite old. I thought it was a grandfather, actually. He's quite an old guy. And to be able to say to the father, I give you my blessing. And so then as soon as the father said, I give you my blessing, and then the son goes, yeah, of course, I'll take your blessing. So I said, no, wait a bit. You really need to take the blessing. I said, just take a moment, and when the dad says to you, I give you my blessing, I want you to just allow the movement to happen, where you can actually literally feel the movement of the blessing land and be taken in by the son. And you can see it. It's almost like that initial kind of, thanks, Dad. Yes, I know you love me. That's great. Let's move on. It's too uncomfortable. And then you could just see all of a sudden, there was just like a drop into a place of solidity. And even the people, there was a small wedding, like 12 people, but you could see they also tuned into a different kind of reality when they could really see the son taking and taking freely. And then there was that point of acknowledgement in the father where you could see, my son has taken my blessing. And then in a sense, it was easier with the bride because she had the two people standing behind her were her parents, and they loved her deeply. And it was much easier for them because it wasn't uncomplicated giving. But even so, it was to be able to acknowledge the fact that mom and dad actually needed to take from their parents. So I asked them, just imagine mom and dad standing behind you, and that they give you their blessing, and the blessing that they give you, you're able to give to your daughter. So they just allowed themselves. And of course, this stage of the game, there was a lot of snot and everybody was blowing their noses and all that kind of stuff. And then she was able, she's face to folks, and she was able to really land in that taking. And then I asked the bride and groom to face each other, just simply say to each other, I'm blessed. And look behind me and see where I come from and see I am blessed. And there's something in that ritual moment that somehow solidifies and enables them to bring themselves completely into their new relationship because they've taken and now they're free to give. So for me, there's always this kind of dance between give and take and what it means from a systemic point of view. And the order, obviously, as we will know, is that parents give and children take. And one day children will be in that place where they will be parents and then they in turn will give. But when that order is honored and there's a flow, then the system relaxes and it's easy. So, so maybe as a check-in, just take a moment and just recognize in yourselves what you've been given over the years by maybe it's your grandparents or your mom and dad. And just allow yourself to be open to the giving that they give you. And even if you close your eyes and just take a moment and just wherever you want your parents to stand in relation to you, even if they passed, and even if you never knew one of your parents, The fact is that you do have parents. They exist. So just allow yourself to find them in relation to yourself. Wherever they stand, behind you, in front of you, on the sides, wherever, just find them. And you might notice they'd be standing together, maybe separate. Whatever it is, it is. And when you stand in front of them, stand before them in an expression of openness and being able to take from them, but taking from them completely freely. And then just take a moment maybe and just look at your mom. And as you are in front of your mom, and you open yourself up to receiving from her, just notice what movement happens inside your own body right now. And as you receive from her, just notice the posture that you take. And in your mind's eye, just allow your body to go into that posture. And notice what happens inside you when you do that. And when you're ready, maybe then you can turn to your dad. And just notice how your dad responds to that gesture that you approach him with, that gesture of openness and of being willing to take from your dad. And take the life that he gives you. Notice also how your body responds to that. And if it's the same as with your mom or different, just notice it. Then just allow yourself to experience that sense of actually having taken from your parents. And what it feels like that you've actually taken what they're giving you. And just feel that fullness or whatever is new in your body. Just allow yourself to feel it. When you're ready, you can come back and say, how's it? So if you feel okay to share, it would be nice to hear your experience. So I'm okay to just do maybe just like, so when I was doing it, the posture that came up for me was, especially with my mom, was like a real bowing and an honoring, and almost like a going down on my knee, and just connecting with her bigness, and just feeling the bigness and the safety of who she is, even though now she's very old and frail and everything. But I could connect with that sense of her bigness and her protection. And then my dad was somehow like kind of reticent, like almost waiting for permission and an acknowledgement that he has got something to offer. So it was quite nice for me. So that's how I felt.
Right. Also share. My mom, first I was bigger, which is obviously we know it's not good. Or not bigger, but like she was tiny, my mom. So, but then I went back to about 5, I would say. And I was hiding into like, you know, like holding her by the knees and like hiding and putting my head there. And then with my dad also, it was easy to hug, but I was more like a teenager, I would say. So I was bigger, but not big, but like still a child, but like more of an adult. With my mom, it was more of that little child, real trust type of hug and taking. So
Beautiful, yeah. Thank you.
thank you.
And what was it like to be held and hugged like that? What did it do for your adult self?
I could feel, you know, like the tension from the back moving again away and then kind of just releasing. So very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Who else wants to share or not?
I can share next.
Hmm.
It was quite nice, actually. What a nice break in the day. For me, it's midday. To be able to, because neither one of my parents are alive anymore, but to get in touch with that was so sweet. For my mom, I was brought into this memory when I was quite little, and my mother used to lay down with us and tell us a story before we went to bed, even though there was a lot of us. But in my room, there was myself and my sister. And I remember this feeling of absolute safety when I was with her, that like everything was completely safe when she was like in that bed next to me lying down. And I remember always saying to her, oh, stay a little longer, because I wanted to like feel that safetiness. And it was really nice to remember that. And then with my dad, I had this image of when I was little, he used to come home from work and we used to all, there was 4 of us, and we used to all beg him to pick us up, you know, and he used to pick us up, you know, and he was tired, but he picked us up. And he had this really interesting smell of cigarettes and tires, because he worked in a tire store. And there's something about that smell that's like my dad, you know, like recently I went into a tire store, and his love. I went into a tire store to buy tires, and I was like so blissing out on the smell of tires. It was so funny.
Yeah.
And I actually told the guy that. I had like this big smile. I said, I know this is crazy. He's like, no, no, my father was in the tire business. I know exactly what you're talking
How's
about.
the smell?
So there's something about that smell, you know, that meant like love from him. So that's my share.
Thank you. That's so nice. So Evan, how was it for you to do that? Because I know you lost your mom, so it must be
Yeah, that was yeah. It's the emotions that I felt were lots of warmth, love, protection, safety, assurance, all the positives. When I think of my mom, yeah, I don't want to get emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah, but everything good, everything holistic.
And for you to take that and to really take it freely.
no, it felt good. Yeah, it felt good.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's like,
Ready to now pass it
nice.
Mm.
It's interesting that ready to pass it on. It's almost like
Right.
when you take freely, then you're
Right.
ready.
to
As
give
opposed
it.
to give
Yeah.
grudgingly, yeah.
Yeah.
So nice.
Mm.
How's it, Isabel? How you doing? It's good to see you.
Hi, Ray. It's good
Yeah.
to see you guys too.
So
It's
cool.
really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, Isabel, do you want to say, did you I don't know if you were part of the meditation kind of
I
experience.
was. I just didn't have my video on. I think for me, more than anything, it was a feeling, an overwhelming feeling and a sense of gratitude. I think sometimes we don't think enough about those things, and looking back into our support systems, etc. And it even brought me back to a day we had at Highlands North, where we had to write down the people who have us, who have our back, and who we have their backs. You know what I mean? Like who's
Yeah.
supporting you and who are you supporting? It brought me back to that little exercise we did when we used to have our little circles there at Highlands North. So it kind of brought me back to that. But yeah, it was the feeling of sense of the overwhelmingness of all the people that you realize actually have your back. A lot of gratitude towards that.
Yeah. I like the gratitude, definitely. Nice. So hi Reggie.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome. So good to
Thank
have
you.
you. Nice.
Thanks.
So I don't know if you'd like to share anything or just to give us a quick check-in because we've missed your voice.
Yeah, unfortunately, I missed the meditation, so I just joined as you were opening your eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm good. I'm just to pick on what Isabel was saying. It's funny. I'm in that state of gratitude. I mean, I'm still in the Cape, so I got to see someone yesterday. He's my former priest, but he played a much more bigger role to me than that. So he's the one person I always went to if I needed to unpack stuff. So every time I come around here, I haven't seen him for 3 years. So it was a get together with him. And I am in that state even today I'm feeling very grateful to have, the people who care for me, that I can depend on, that I can lean on. And it's an amazing support and people with a lot of wisdom. So I'm feeling very grateful.
Thank you. It's nice to bring that old wise mentor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the relationship is definitely one of give and taking and generous giving. Yeah. So Heaven, can you put the slide on with the 4 orders? That's up there somewhere. I'm sure she can share. Should come up now. So now what's happened to Heaven? So I'm always curious how you translate this into an educational setting or the classroom setting, and how you translate. Let me see if this is Heaven. No, it's not here. Heaven, are you doing all right? Because you've gone off line and the picture's gone. Are you sharing the? Oh, here we go. Okay, great. No, that's good. It's a bit big, but I'm sure everyone can see. So Heaven, I don't know if you can just raise it a little bit because I can't see the bottom of it, which is the one we need to work on. That's it. That's it. The exchange. Okay, perfect. Very good. So, Kinga, I don't know if you've seen this image before, but basically it's our way of just trying to explain the 4 orders of belonging, time, and exchange.
Is it on the website?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have a look at the whole picture and then, but okay.
Yeah, so this is obviously at the site. So basically it's governed by time. So the first one, there's time, obviously, and then so this is in the past. So whose contribution hasn't been honored or acknowledged? So it's a way of just doing an inquiry into a system to find out where the love stopped flowing, or why isn't learning happening in the classroom, or what needs to take place in a space when there seems to be an imbalance between give and take. So part of the inquiry is to look into, okay, whose contribution hasn't been honored or acknowledged? So in South Africa, our educational system has been born from missionaries who came into South Africa and started mission schools. And then during the National Party era, they created Bantu education. And Bantu education was basically about just giving the majority of the population of South Africa just enough education to be able to do menial work. So it was basically designed to keep people in poverty and in enslavement. And our current situation in education is completely, it's chaotic and it's imbalanced, and exchange and give and take is so out of balance. And one of my when I sense into this place of whose contribution hasn't been honored or acknowledged, I get quite emotional. So I always, when I get a bit like teary, then I know that I'm on in the system, in the field. But my belief is that we've never really honored those teachers that have actually had to teach the children inferior education. That despite their difficulties, despite the fact that they knew what they were giving wasn't enough, they did their best. And they gave everything that they could possibly do to actually educate those kids, even though they were in a system that was designed to make people not prosper, not do incredibly well. So I often think about our own system and why is it so crazy? And I always come back to that point, like whose contribution in South African education hasn't been acknowledged? And I always think about those women and men who, for whatever reason, believed in education so much that even though it was inferior, even though it was really bad, they did everything in their power to actually uplift their communities. And I often think about those unsung heroes in South African education, and I wonder what it would be like to actually honor them. So when I look at our own system, that's what comes to mind. And I might be wrong, I might be right, but I get a sense of that. And so then when you move into the present situation, you ask, what current imbalances need to be addressed? So like say, once you're in a space and you're trying to work out what's going on in the classroom, why is there a resistance to learning? And you've looked into the past and whose contribution hasn't been acknowledged. And it might not even be a big systemic thing. Maybe the teacher themselves needs to acknowledge the people that have enabled them to be in that position of being a teacher, and just allowing themselves to connect with those teachers that have taught them, even the bad ones. We did some work with the school principal in Munseyville, and and she was the most amazing woman, so dynamic and so like full of life. And she was trying her best to do everything in her power to be the best principal possible. But the system, the educational system, was just wearing her down and wearing her down. And she had reached a point where she said, that's it, I cannot stay, I need to leave. So we did a constellation, and what came up, strangely enough, was a teacher she had. And this teacher was a real meanie. She was a horrible, horrible teacher. And she used to bully this. She was a big lady and quite overweight. And this teacher used to bully her about her weight. But strangely enough, it was this very teacher that inspired her to become a teacher. So she had this entangled conflict around between this love, this inspiration that this woman gave, this teacher gave her, and at the same time, this punishing. And what was happening in her current situation, this horrible teacher became the Department of Education. And so she was relating to the Department of Education as if she was relating to that teacher that used to bully her about her weight. And then when she could see that and she could separate the two, she was able to just have like this incredible shift in her awareness about, okay, I can take what the department gives me in terms of support, and all the ugly stuff that they pour on us, I can leave behind. And then I can be free to be the principal that I want to be. So it was a real nice example of moving from whose contribution hasn't been honored into what is the current situation. Gosh, now let me just hit that. I don't know why that's happened. Something, what are you guys seeing at the moment?
You are
Your
sharing.
background, yes, there it is.
I don't know what happened there. We just, yeah, I don't know what happened. So anyway, and then the last one is, what reward or processes will support future happiness and satisfaction? So it's like almost like moving into the future. So what kind of mechanisms need to be put into place that everybody feels that their contribution is being valued and they're getting just reward for what they're doing? So it's a kind of moving in from the past to the present to the future. So I've spoken enough, I think. So I'm just curious about anybody's reflections or insights or questions.
I did have a question. I don't know if you looked into that, you know, all these families who put so much effort to educate their children, and then they have a degree and diploma, and we keep on meeting kids anymore, adults, and they work in Woolworths with a diploma, which costed the family so much to put them through school, and they like the future of the family, and they end up working behind as a cashier because there's not enough job so there is not a job market for them. So this whole life dream, if we go back to this, you know, like education was this big dream, and it's going to change the life of the whole family. So it feels very heavy in the moment, you know, as a future picture for that you can get a degree, finish university or college, and I can end up with no job in South Africa. I don't know in Connecticut, but in South Africa. And, you know, like they keep on saying the white kids, but no, it's not true. All kids, I think it's very difficult to find a job.
So what is the sense, what is your
So
sense?
what I'm saying, you know, like it's quite a heavy, in the moment I feel, even though education is the only way out, but it's a little bit here, it feels a bit not as bright as it could be, the future.
Yeah.
So I
So
don't know if it's coming from the background. I don't know where it's coming from, but. Because so my feeling is that what is not honored also the sacrifice of the families, what they do to educate their children.
So it's interesting language you use, the sacrifice of the family.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because they often take away from the everyday life to be able to send the children into, or the child, this one child. So there is a lot of, even now, it's a lot of sacrifice in a family for the future. And then the future is actually much, feels smaller than it could be. So
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. I think it creates a lot of helplessness. If you think about, it creates like a whole learned helplessness for both the child and the family themselves, because now they had a hope that this would bring about change, and then when it doesn't happen, everyone kind of sinks into a weird disappointment slash helplessness that gets deeper and deeper, I suppose, the longer it lingers.
So I'm curious, as I apply like the systemic lens of the orders of exchange into that, and the language of sacrifice, and then I think about the price that the family had to pay for the child to be educated, and then I think about that child who was educated to the detriment of the rest of the family, and the responsibility that they kind of been given to be able to then support or to prosper. And in terms of the systemic lens, I'm wondering how the imbalance, because what you're talking about is like a kind of imbalance. The family had to sacrifice for the one, for future prosperity. And does that one person have the capacity to take on that sacrifice?
not really, because then it becomes black tax, and then even if the child succeeds, so then the future is again diminished by trying to pay it back, but it's impossible to pay it back. So it's a heavy responsibility which goes on the child. You know, I meet quite a few clients and they're burdened.
Yes.
They often girls, actually, because, you know, in the moment, black female is supported in finding jobs. But then what they have to pay back, it burdens them to...
I think it's an enormous pressure. If you think about it, it's really like an enormous pressure. And then again, if you don't meet people's expectations, then it becomes a whole cyclical down spiral where you start blaming and feeling guilt for the amount of sacrifice that was put into you, if that makes sense. Because then you feel like you can't even begin to give them back what they want back from you, basically, you know? So it becomes a whole thing where, yeah, no, it's terrible, but it's true. And that's where black text comes from, if you really want to chop it up. Yes.
It's amazing your language, Isabel, because it speaks exactly to this whole idea of exchange. So when you've been given too much and you can't repay it, you're left with feelings of guilt and actually feelings of resentment to the people that actually gave you. So you get
You
caught
can't
up.
receive. Yeah, you can't even receive now this gift or sacrifice properly, because to you it just seems like a death sentence, or it just seems like a downward spiral into a well that you can't get out of, because at the end of the day, you will carry that burden of saying, why did they choose me? And I think that's what happens to people who are like firstborn children more than anything, because people have their hopes in your future so much that if you do not reach a peak or something, it becomes a thing where now you experience the guilt of not, like, failing to fly or succeed and stuff like that. And then your younger siblings also have to feel that, because the money has been sacrificed on you, and now the younger siblings don't get that amount of money or that same amount of sacrifice put into them, when it could have been probably better suited to give it to them than to you. But you didn't voice it out and say openly that this is too much for me, I don't want this is not the career for me, or this is not where I want to be. Because I think that's what also entails the first year dropouts, you know, when you're studying something that you really didn't want to study, but your parents wanted you to study, and it really genuinely doesn't work out because you didn't want to be there in a way.
Yeah.
And yeah, because I just did a essay for a conference about this, but it's also, they did like researches that it's enormous pressure from the system, that even though seemingly the system wants the child to be better and have a degree, but in the same time there is that pull that you become different, so then you feel excluded, or the family feels excluded, because there is such a big difference between the child and the parents or the siblings. So it becomes also this pulling. So a lot is a high, you know, like dropouts, the first year dropouts in the. So I think it's, you're right, it's two sides, I think, or at least two, I think more than two, but yeah.
So when we apply like the wisdom of the orders of exchange into this dilemma, and to try and understand it and how to shift it. So when you look at the family that had to sacrifice, and like whose contribution hasn't been honored in the family system. So when you talk about the siblings who've had to go without so that the one person can do well, is part of reestablishing some kind of shift in the system, a process where those who the sacrifice is honored and valued just as much as the person who did well, who was given the gift of being able to go to university. Is there a kind of process where those people can be honored, their contribution can be valued and recognized?
I'm also wondering if there's a little bit in the exchange of like parents hierarchically in the order are before the children, but now they're sort of pushing the children before them. Yeah. And the child almost has to be disloyal to the parents to move forward, disloyal to their position and their place and where they are. So there's that kind of weird dynamic too, you know, like when I used to work with a lot of young men, very young men, like 14, 15, who's a lot of their fathers were incarcerated, and there's a whole studies about how those young men would become incarcerated. But it's almost like they have to be disloyal to their fathers to move into a place where they won't be incarcerated. So it's almost like you have to be disloyal to the system and where they came from and who they are, and move out of it in order to, and I don't think the parents want the loyalty and they want them to be loyal, but they want them to move out. So they put them into like almost an impossible exchange situation.
Yeah.
Both are, the parents and the child are both put in an impossible exchange situation. So I wonder if there's some way that the child can accept or understand that they're going to have to be a little disloyal, and the parents are going to have to allow that in order to move forward.
So
that's why they come back into being a cashier again, because then they're still in the system then, you know.
So it's interesting, down that sense of exchange, we did an exercise with some learners around being blessed by their parents for them to be more educated than their parents. So it was just like a very simple mapping where we got some kids to represent the parents, and then the other kids to represent themselves who were struggling. And then just for the parents to say to the kids, you have our blessing to prosper academically, and you remain our children. and then we got the kids to bow to the parents. And it was a nice systemic move, because it's almost, the children need permission from the parents to be better than they, for them to really be better at a soul level. So it looks like from the outside that's exactly what the parent wants, but then that double mixed message is, but don't come with your smart ass kind of comments here, you know. So it's that kind of, so when the child feels that they can take the blessing of their parents to do well, because that's exactly what the parent wants, but really take it and say, okay, I take it and I honor it. I wonder if that would help shift that kind of dynamic or not. So Reggie,
That's a really good dynamic you just mentioned, really, truly. Because I was thinking about it as she spoke about how you need to somehow get to a point where you become disloyal to the system that you were raised in order to become better, unfortunately, you know what I mean? But then it comes with the back end of sometimes parents now feeling like, I created this monster of this smart ass person who's better than me, and their own feelings that they need to go through with regards to that, you know, that give and take of learning how now to balance the system again. When you feel like your children are smarter than you and they know more than you.
So it talks to the final area of the order of exchange. Like, is everybody in their right position or is everybody, in terms of exchange, is everybody in their right place for things to prosper? So even to be able to say, going forward, what is needed for this child to prosper as they step into university, they step into their careers. And part of that is still to feel the support of their parents and to be able to take it. And at the same time, being able to step into the world and actually be better than their parents.
Ray, I like the example that you used with the children honoring the parents and likewise the parents doing the same. And talking about the place, because, once we talk about, the parents providing for the kids so that they could have a better life, and then it comes with the minute that is not honored from both sides, and there's expectations, and I think that's where the problem starts. And then putting in what you said earlier about the school teacher who, as much as he felt bullied, but she decided to take what was of value, and whatever was negative she left out. And she did well in that system. I think that's definitely the way to look at it. That's the way to go about the whole thing, because if you think about the dynamics of, and as we talking, I'm thinking about real life examples around me that I see, and it's a common thing with parents having to provide for children. But it's the amazing thing, because there is no expectations as to, I'm doing this so that you can come back. It's so that, you can have a better life than I did. And there is that honoring, and that's the respect. Automatically what happens with that child, they don't lose their roots. They always come back and to help make it better. So it's that honoring from both sides. I think that's very important in the place, because once the parents once they lose their place as well, it gets very, very confusing for children, because now they're not quite sure where their position is. So I'd say they're approaching it from the talking about exchange, honoring from both sides. Then that comes with no expectations at all. So you become the best that you can with so much gratitude as to where you come from, and it just happens automatically to go back and help make things better. And that's what I see a lot of around my circles. And I'd say in my family as well, because I think traditionally that's what happens to a lot of Black family. And there's no hard feeling that I did that for you. It's an automatic thing that happens, that they did this for me, I'm going to do this for my niece or my sister, my younger sister, and all that, because that's how we left each other. So that honoring, you do honor it, you acknowledge it. That's very important.
Yeah. So it's when you have the freedom to take fully that then the generosity automatically clicks in.
Mm.
But the first step is to really enable the teacher or the learner to really take completely, because it like kind of sets up in motion a kind of, so Bert Hellinger talks about like there's an imbalance between give and take, and we don't like to be in somebody else's debt. So when we take freely from someone, there's an automatic kind of movement in us that wants to correct the imbalance. So we want to then give back, but then we want to just give a little bit more. And then the other person, if they're in good standing, feel they don't want to be in debt to me, so then they reciprocate by giving. But there's a freedom in the giving and the take. And now I always thought the way to get that mechanism going is to take. And everybody says, you must give, the normal Christian kind of understanding, you have to be somebody that gives and being generous. And I always say that it starts with taking, and really taking freely, and taking abundantly, and taking that it belongs to me because you've wanted to give it to me. And automatically out of that taking and that filling up comes a point where you actually say, well, I want to give, whether it's back to the person or to someone below you. There's a kind of a freedom and a generosity that comes from really being able to take. But I think often you would find people that are finding it difficult to take, find it difficult to give, even a compliment. Like someone gives you a compliment, how do you take the compliment? Oh, no. What do you say? Oh, wow, okay. Yes, I just feel that compliment just filling me up from my knees all the way to the top of my head, and it feels so good and vibrant, and I feel great. Thank you for that. And then you're much easier to move in the world generously because you're able to take the compliment. So it's a really nice, I don't know, it's a lovely, I don't know, for me, it's been very helpful in my own life. And even now when people compliment me, my initial reaction is, oh, then I go, wait a minute, Raymond. Yeah, okay, I get it. It's nice. I did do well, thank you. Yeah, I tried my best, and I'm glad you saw it. Thank you. So it's interesting. So that's, for me, that's how to get the mechanism going, is to learn how to take. And we're not taught how to take, we're always taught how to give.
Ray, I just wanted to say something that it's something that I experienced.
Just say goodbye. Bye-bye.
Okay, Kinga, thank you very much.
Lovely. So thank you. See you next time.
All right,
Bye.
good.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Just quickly, something that made me think of you, I think 3 days ago, and you've just mentioned it now. You're talking about the Bantu education and honoring the teachers, the conditions that they have to work under, and they're doing the best that they can. And I just wanted to share with you something that I experienced a few days ago, driving from Cape Town to Hermanus in one of the beautiful areas on the hills. We've got, shacks mushrooming everywhere. And for the first time we saw that. But it's like, it looks more structured, the piece of land is all cut out, with space. You can see most probably they're going to be building something. But it's a piece of land that was absolutely amazing. And suddenly you see all these shacks. And funny, I thought of you about, honoring, people when you move into your system, and think about the conditions that they have to survive under such difficult circumstances. And yet they keep on, and they survive, and they make a living out of that. And I found myself having so much compassion for people in those circumstances. And the immediate attitude with us, in South Africa, especially in a beautiful piece of land, when you see shacks coming up, it's like anger and the value of properties and stuff like that, But yeah, I just thought I was thinking of you. I was thinking of that. There was a lot of compassion, looking at the circumstances that they're in, and doing the best that they can. And I'm just thinking, if that was our approach, for our problems in South Africa, then yeah, I think we'd be dealing with our problems differently. I just thought I should share it with you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. And it's a complicated, yeah, it's complex. It's really complex. So that's nice. Yeah, it's nice to finish with that, I think, Reggie. Thank you. So maybe to do a quick round of yeah, so just to do a quick round of what you're taking. What's the next big thing you're going to be taking, either from somebody that you know or somebody that you love, or even just from this experience? What is your plan? What are you going to take?
Advice. Advice. I mean, that's obvious.
Lovely. Yeah. Jeez. Yeah. I think what I need to take.
Isabel, I think you're muted. I think you're trying to talk.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know I was muted. Thank you for that. No, I was saying, for me, I'm going to take away the compliment thing, because I also struggle with that a lot. I don't take compliments well, but I'm going to work on that. It'll be like a conscious effort to work on taking compliments in and taking them in fully. You know what I mean? Because I think part of taking is learning how to take fully and abundantly, and with feeling like it's your gift, learning how to do that.
Great. Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, I think I struggle with the same thing. I'm so good at giving, but I love the expression taking freely. That's something that I'm taking away with.
Yeah. Now for me, I'm going to take your faces away. And just that, to remember you all.
I wonder if this is a quality of educators, this, not taking freely, but giving, more than taking. But I was just thinking of the exchange with my husband and me, like maybe I need to take more and take freely more. And, or just in my relationships, yes, to try to see how I'm, to just observe how I am with taking in.
Yeah.
And to see where it's freely and where I can grow with that.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Sada. So thanks very much for, I suppose. So I'm going to take your time. Yeah, I'll take your time that you give it freely. I really take it. I take it. I take it. It feels good. Thanks. Thank you for the time you've given. Yeah, makes me feel strong and good. So thank you for that. So have a lovely evening.
Thank you, Ray.
Doing there's a workshop that's coming on that. It's going to be a homegrown workshop. I'm sure you know about it. And then Janet's going to have Albert Marr doing a 2-hour workshop in South Africa online. So that's exciting. But anyway, I'm sure you've seen all the stuff. So good night.
Good night. Thanks, Ray.
Bye.
Good evening, everyone.
Bye.